So 500 years ago, in the village of Navadvipa, on the auspicious full moon day of Phalgun Purnima, another moon arose in the courtyard of Jagannath Mishra and Sachidevi. He appeared to provide cooling shelter to the burning hearts of the people in the age of Kali. He was the golden avatar, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It is customary that when we chant the glories of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, first we invoke this prayer. Please repeat after me. Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
All glories to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. All glories to Lord Nityananda Prabhu. All glories to Advaita Charya. And all glories to all the devotees of Lord Chaitanya. Please repeat after me. Parama Karuna Pahudui Jana.
Parama Karuna Pahu Vijana.
Nitai Gaura Chandra.
Nitai Gaura Chandra.
Sabayavatara Sharashiromani.
Sarasiromani.
Kevalayananda Kanda.
Kevalananda Kanda.
The two lords, Nitai Gaurachandra, are very merciful. They are the essence of all incarnations. The specific significance of these incarnations is that they introduced a process of chanting and dancing that is simply joyful. So, before we get into the glories of Lord Chaitanya today, let us briefly recap what we have studied so far. Yesterday, we studied about the four Vaishnava Sampradayas. We studied about the conclusive opinion of Lord Chaitanya. Aradhyo Bhagavan Brajesha Tanaya Stadhama Vrindavanam Ramya Kachit Upasana Brajabadhu Varghena Vayakalpita Srimad Bhagavatam Pramanam Amalam Prema Pumartho Mahan Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhor Matamidam Tatradharona Paraha. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna, the son of Nanda Maharaj, is worshipped along with his transcendental abode Vrindavana. The most pleasing form of worship for the Lord is that which was performed by the gopis of Vrindavan. Srimad Bhagavatam is the spotless authority on everything, and pure love of Godhead is the ultimate goal of life for all men. Prema Pumartho Mahan. These statements, for which we have the highest regard, are the opinion of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. We also studied the Achintya Bheda Bheda Tattva philosophy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and we saw what is the glorious position of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita among the 27 biographies of the Lord. Prior to that, we saw the Sannyasa Leela of the Lord, how the Lord accepted sannyas to save the scholars and the Vedantists from committing offenses and further getting degraded. How he left his beautiful wife, most devoted and affectionate mother, and took sannyas at the young age of 24, just to deliver the fallen conditioned souls of this world. Today we shall see that soon after taking sannyas, the Lord wanted to visit Vrindavan, but he was tricked into going to Sri Advaita Charya's house in Shantipur. On the way back from Shantipur, the Lord visited Remuna, where he narrated the wonderful pastimes of Sri Madhavendra Puri, Gopala, and Gopinatha. From there, he went on to Jagannath Puri, where he liberated the hard-hearted Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. So, Before we go into the details of these pastimes, I would like to say that today is the fourth part of Chaitanya, Lord Chaitanya's glories. So far, we have seen an overview of the Lord's pastimes. We have seen some of the early pastimes of the Lord in the form of Adi Leela, and prior to that, we saw an introduction to the Lord and his teachings. Today, we shall take a step further. Beyond the philosophy and the teachings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, today we will be introduced to the Lord as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We shall see how in bestowing mercy upon Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, how he revealed himself as a Supreme Lord. So please join me in a deep dive in the ocean of bliss that is Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. So soon after taking sannyas, the Lord wanted to visit Vrindavan. Now he started from Nadia, from where he was staying, and he set forth towards a path that he considered to be Vrindavan. Now let us see where is Vrindavan. This is Nadia near Kolkata, and Vrindavan is near New Delhi. So it's a 1,400 kilometer journey. And as he set out, what happened was Nityananda Prabhu, who was traveling with him, and there were some other devotees, they hatched a plan. Let us see what that plan is. So as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was en route to Vrindavan, all the ecstatic symptoms became manifest, and he did not know in which direction he was going. Nor did he know whether it was day or night. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went towards Vrindavan, Nityananda Prabhu, Chandrasekhara, and Prabhu Mukunda followed him. Anyone who saw him joined him in shouting, Hari, 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 Hari. As they chanted this with the Lord, all the unhappiness of material existence diminished. He approached the cowherd boys along the way and put his hands on their head and said, go on chanting like that. Because you see, everybody was chanting. Whoever he saw, everyone has joined him in chanting. And he blessed them like that. He became very happy to see the cowherd boys chanting. Thus, just Chaitanya Mahaprabhu blessed all the cowherd boys. Now, Nityananda Prabhu was also traveling with him. He saw how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was so pleased to see the cowherd boys chanting Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Hari. So he called Nityananda Prabhu. He called all the cowherd boys and confidentially he called them near him. And he said, psst, psst, please come here. And then he said, if Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asks you about the path to Vrindavan, please show him the path on the bank of Ganges instead. Like that he told. And so when the cowherd boys were questioned by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked, Are Baba, where is the way to Vrindavan? So immediately the boy showed him the path, this way, sir. And he showed him the path, the bank of Ganges instead. So as soon as the Lord heard that, immediately he started going in ecstasy towards that path. Oh, Vrindavan is coming. Like that, he went in that direction. And then Nityananda Prabhu created an elaborate plan to trick Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to visit Advaita Acharya's house. When the Lord asked Nityananda Prabhu how far it was to go to Vrindavan, the Nityananda Prabhu said, just see here. Here only it is there. Look, the river Yamuna is right here in front of you. Actually, it was Ganges. In his ecstasy, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted river Ganges as river Yamuna. Thus, thinking the Ganges to be river Yamuna, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu began to offer prayers to it, glorious prayers. Then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu offered obeisances and took his bath in Ganges. At the time, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had just taken sannyas. He just came with whatever he was wearing. He had just one piece of cloth. We have seen how in the last class when we were talking about Sannyasa Leela, he had just one underwear and one outer vastra, one kaupina and one outer vastra. That's all. So with that he has set out. And now he has taken a dip in Ganges. So he's waiting with wet clothes. Now suddenly from there, what happens? Advaita Acharya appears in a boat. because Nityananda Prabhu has hatched a plan. He has previously informed Advaita Prabhu that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is coming, and without his knowing, we will bring him to your house. Please be ready on the other side of Ganges with clothes. Because Nityananda Prabhu knows that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu will take a dip, and he has only one clothes of underwear. All of that he knows. So Chaitanya Advaita Acharya comes in the boat, and he greets him, and Advaita Acharya stands before the Lord, offers obeisances. After seeing him, the Lord began to wonder about this entire situation. How did you come here? How did you know I am in Vrindavan? How have you come all the way to Vrindavan here? How come you know all this? So then Advaita Acharya, he disclosed everything. This is what is happening. And then Advaita Acharya says, "O Lord, wherever you are, that is Vrindavan. Now it is my great fortune that you have come to the banks of Ganges." And saying this, he brings him home. He placates him. Actually, Lord Chaitanya becomes very angry. He says, "Look, Nityananda has tricked me." But he says, "No, no, no. Actually, in this part of the Ganges, on one side of the river, there is Yamuna. On the other side, there is Ganges. This is how Yamuna and Ganga flow in the same place here. So actually, Nityananda Prabhu has not given you any lie. Whatever he has told is true. You have actually taken dip in Yamuna only." And then he placates him in various ways and brings him home. So this pastime, there is still further more to it. But at this point, I just want to call to your attention this very important thing that Advaita Acharya says, "Wherever you are, that is Vrindavan." So this illustrates a very important point, that where there is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, that becomes Vrindavan. Where there is a pure devotee of Krishna, that becomes Vrindavan. So whether you consider Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, or you consider him as a pure devotee of the Lord, which he manifested both of those forms in this incarnation as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, actually in both ways, wherever Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is there, that is Vrindavan. We have here wonderful, beautiful deities of Nitai Gauranga in IHF Boston, and therefore, without a doubt, as we are undertaking our devotional activities here, IHF Boston is also Vrindavan only, not different from Vrindavan. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu goes to Advaita Acharya's house, and there they prepare an elaborate feast. It is described in great detail in Chaitanya Charitamrita, how his wife Sita Devi makes very elaborate arrangements, which is a role model for any grahastha as to how any grahastha with means should make offerings to the Lord. And then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu are invited. They are offered a seat. And then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, of course, has just taken sannyas. He refuses to take such elaborate meals. But somehow or the other, Advaita Acharya humbly makes petition to him. And he says, "Look, you are having Chappan Bhog in Jagannath Puri as Lord Jagannath. You are non-different from Lord Jagannath. If you can take 56 times meals in Jagannath, and you have got no limit to that, what I have put in front of you is nothing. You can definitely have this." So saying like this, he keeps on offering him more and more and more prasadam that has been offered to Lord. Both Nityananda Prabhu and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu are very pleased with that, and they satisfy Advaita Acharya's desires fully. And then there are also joking pastimes in that, how Nityananda Prabhu is joking with Advaita Acharya. He throws some rice on Advaita Acharya, and then Advaita Acharya chastises him jokingly. So there are some very nice loving exchanges. If you have time, please go through this. So after this pastime is over, there Chaitanya Mahaprabhu stays there for some time. And every day that he stays there, his mother, Sachi Devi, has also been brought there by Nityananda Prabhu's arrangement. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mother is also coming there. She's seeing him for the first time after sannyas. So definitely a bittersweet moment for her. She's glad that she's able to see him, but she's also very, very difficult to see him with clean-shaven head like that, young person, young child. And suddenly she's seeing him in sannyas. But she begs all of the devotees that you all may see him in many other places, but I am a woman, I cannot travel to all those places. And Lord Chaitanya, he's a sannyasi, he'll never come back here to my house. So as long as he's here, I will cook for him. So therefore, every day she cooks for him. Lord accepts that. And then they make an arrangement by which he stays somewhat near to his mother, but at the same time not at home. As a sannyasi, he cannot stay at home. But his mother made a petition, but because they had lost all their children, and his elder brother has also taken sannyas, out of his love and devotion, he grants his mother the wish with the consultation of all the senior devotees that he would stay in Jagannath Puri, and thereby his mother will continue to get news about him, and he can stay within a nearby distance where devotees can continuously keep going to Jagannath Puri. They used to go very often from Nadia. Devotees used to travel often to Jagannath Puri so she could continue to get news about him. After staying there for some time, the Lord um, leaves proceeds for Jagannath Puri along with 4 of his devotees, and um, he travels on the path chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra with great eagerness. Each day, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu personally went to a village. So on the way to Jagannath Puri, every day, he personally goes to a village, begs alms, and cooks food himself and offers to the Lord on the way. These are on the way. Then gradually they are going. On the way, there is a place called Remuna. So they reach the town of Remuna. And in Remuna, there is a deity of Gopinatha, deity of Gopinath. And there is a temple there. So in the temple of Remuna, there is a deity of Gopinath. It was a very beautiful deity. As soon as Lord Chaitanya visited the temple, he immediately offered his obeisances with great devotion. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu offered his obeisances at the lotus feet of Gopinath deity, something wonderful happened. What happened? On the deity, there was a helmet made of flowers. So the helmet made of flowers fell down upon Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And the Lord became very pleased by this as receiving the mercy of Gopinath. And he became ecstatic. He chanted and danced in various ways with his devotees. All the servants of the deity were struck with wonder due to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's intense love, his exquisite beauty, and his transcendental qualities. Because of their love for Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they served him in many ways. And that night, the Lord stayed in the temple of Gopinath. The Lord remained there. There is a secret behind why Lord decided to stay there, although he was going to Jagannath Puri. But why did he decide to stay in Gopinath temple? Actually, it is said in Chaitanya Charitamrita that the Lord remained there because he was very eager to receive the remnants of sweet rice offered to the Gopinath deity. What is the significance of the sweet rice offered to Gopinath deity? Now, the Lord had heard from his spiritual master, Ishwarapuri. So, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's spiritual master is Ishwarapuri. He had heard from Ishwarapuri this narration of pastimes of this deity Gopinath in relation to Madhavendra Puri. Who is Madhavendra Puri? That is the spiritual master of Ishwarapuri. So, there is a very special pastime concerning Madhavendra Puri and the deity of Gopinath that happened there in Remuna. And he had heard that from his own spiritual master, Ishwarapuri. And as part of that, there is a very special significance to the sweet rice. Now let us see what that is. So this deity of Gopinath was widely known as Kshira Chora Gopinath. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told all his devotees the story of how the deity became so famous. So as it happens in today also when we go for any yatra, dham yatra, we do kirtan, dancing, and then we all gather together and we chant the glories of the dham, right? We relate the pastimes. So similarly, setting an example, and of course in ecstasy, he had heard this very special pastime from his spiritual master, and he wanted to share that with his disciples. So he asked all of them to come together, and he started relating this pastime. Formerly, the deity had stolen a pot of sweet rice for Madhavendra Puri, and therefore he became very famous as a lord who stole the sweet rice. So let us see what the pastime is. Once, Sri Madhavendra Puri traveled to Vrindavan. So this is a bit of a preamble. Now, who is Madhavendra Puri? He is a spiritual master of Ishwarapuri. So Madhavendra Puri traveled to Vrindavan. There, he came upon a hill known as, what is the most famous hill in Vrindavan? Govardhan Hill. So the most famous hill in Vrindavan is, of course, Govardhan Hill. So he came upon Govardhan Hill. As soon as he saw Govardhan Hill, Madhavendra Puri became mad in ecstasy of the love of God. And he did not know whether it is day or night. Sometimes he stood up, sometimes he fell down, sometimes he rolled on the ground. He could not discriminate what was where. He could not do anything because he was so much in ecstasy. After circumambulating the hill, after doing the parikrama of Govardhan Hill, Madhavendra Puri went to a place called Govinda Kunda and took his bath there. So Govinda Kunda is a very prominent place in Parikrama Marg. So whenever we go for Govardhan Parikrama, we always visit that place. And then he sat beneath a tree to take his evening rest. While he was sitting beneath a tree, an unknown cowherd boy came there with a pot of milk, and he placed it before Madhavendra Puri. And smilingly he said, "Oh Madhavendra Puri, please drink the milk I have brought. Why don't you go beg some food to eat? Look what kind of meditation you are doing here. You're not eating, you're not drinking, you're not doing anything. At least have this milk and please go and beg some alms." Normally, the um, the renounced order of life, the people who are there, they would beg for alms. They don't have their own earnings, right? So they don't have a bank balance. They cannot go and purchase some grains. So how do they maintain their livelihood? They just go from door to door and beg as much as necessary for that meal or that day, and they cook some meal once in a day and they eat. This is all they eat. But Madhavendra Puri was not doing that. He was just, if somebody came and gave him some food, he would accept. Otherwise, he would not beg for food at all. So this small boy came and gave him this pot of milk, and he said, "You please have this." So seeing the beauty of that boy, Madhavendra Puri became very satisfied. Hearing his sweet words, he forgot all hunger and thirst. Madhavendra Puri said, "Who are you? Where do you reside? And how did you know that I am fasting?" The boy replied, "Sir, I am a cowherd boy, and I reside in this village only. In my village, nobody fasts. If somebody does not have food, they will go beg from house to house and somebody will give. And if somebody is not even begging, then I supply all the eatables for that person." This is what that boy said. And there were some women who were here. They saw you fasting like this. So they came and told me, and they gave me this food, which I am now giving to you, this milk. And so please accept this. And now I should go and milk the cows. I'll come back later and collect the pot which I have given you. So saying this, that boy went away from there. In fact, that boy just disappeared. He vanished. Madhavendra Puri saw, where is that boy gone? Could not find him. He went that side, but after going some distance, he just vanished. Could not see. Now, then Madhavendra Puri took that milk. He washed that pot. He kept it aside. And then he waited for the boy to come back and take that pot. But the boy never came. The boy never came back. That night, Madhavendra Puri could not sleep. Normally also he does not sleep. All the Goswamis, they barely sleep. But that night, particularly, he could not sleep. He kept staying awake, chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And after some time, chanting, the wee hours of the morning, little bit he dozed off. As soon as he dozed off, he had a dream. In the dream, that same boy came again in the dream. And then he held the hand of Madhavendra Puri. He made him get up from that place. He led him to one place where there were some bushes. And then he said, "Look, I reside in this bush. And because of this, I suffer very much from severe cold and heat, rain, showers, winds. Please bring the people of the village and get them to out of this bush. Then have them situate me nicely on top of a hill. Please construct a temple on top of the hill." The boy continued, "And install me in that temple. After this, wash me with large quantities of cold water so that my body can be cleansed. For many days, Madhavendra Puri, I have been observing you and I have been wondering, when will Madhavendra Puri come here to serve me? Now, I have accepted your service due to your ecstatic love for me. Thus, I shall appear, and by my audience, all the fallen souls will be delivered. My name is Gopala, and I am the lifter of Govardhan Hill. I was installed by Vajranabha, and here I am the authority. When the Muslims attacked, the priest who was serving me hid me in this bush in the jungle. Then he ran away, the priest ran away out of the fear of attack. So I have just been here now, staying in this bush. It is very good that you have come here. Now please just remove me with great care." After saying this, the boy disappeared in his dream. Now, suddenly Madhavendra Puri wakes up and what is his dream? And then he realizes the dream, he recounts the dream and immediately begins to lament greatly. "Oh, the Lord who lifted Govardhan Hill,
has personally come in front of me, but unfortunately I could not recognize him. So saying this, Madhavendra Puri becomes very, very sorrowful. But then immediately he says, oh, but there is an instruction here for me. I need to execute this instruction. Then immediately he goes, collects the villagers, and then he brings them. They're all astonished to hear this account. And then he leads them to that bush, and then they start cutting because it's a very thick forest there. Bush means not just like the one which is in front of our temple here. It is thick forest in that area. Today, if you go to Vrindavan, there is no forest. It's all been cut. But this is 500 years back. Thick forest. So the villagers start cutting with all the knives and all the sharp instruments. And as they start clearing the bushes, there they find the deity, a beautiful deity of Gopala. So they take that. Why Gopala? Because he introduces himself in the dream, saying, I am Gopala, lifter of Govardhan hill. So they take the deity and then they cleanse the body of the deity. And the deity was a heavy deity. It could not be just carried to the hill like that. So a few people gathered together and then they created a throne for the deity with some stones. And then they lifted the deity and placed on top of the hill. And then there were, for the initial cleansing of the deity, there were 900 pots of water that were taken from the Govinda Kunda. And then the deity was washed with that. And this is just the initial washing of the deity. After that, as soon as the villagers came to know that a deity is going to be installed, they brought so many things, whatever they had. If somebody had one sack of rice, they would bring the entire sack of rice. Not that they'll keep something for the next month and then take a little bit and bring it for the deity installation. It is said in Chaitanya Charitamrita that the villagers brought everything they had. All rice, dal, wheat, everything, whatever they had, they brought for making the offering. And then there was an elaborate deity worship. The worship of Abhisheka is very elaborately described. The Abhisheka of the Lord, the installation ceremony, was personally done by Madhavendra Puri. And once the Abhisheka was done, there was, and not only the food, but from the nearby villages, there were other potters and other people. They all got the pots and they got other utensils that were needed for cooking. So elaborate cooking was done and grand Annakuta was created. And all of that was offered to this deity that has been installed. And then the Lord accepted those offerings. Now, when he accepted those offerings, the Annakuta which was there, did it disappear from there? It did not disappear. It stayed there. So what is this? How does Krishna eat like this? There's a big Annakuta kept in front of him and he has eaten that, but it is remaining there. So what is this process? Sometimes when we hear this pastime, we're thinking that does really Krishna require all this? Why such an elaborate arrangement for deity, of bhoga offering? Why is it required? So actually, because we are so influenced by atheistic influence all around us, the atheistic atmosphere all around us, we do not have any understanding how the Supreme Personality of Godhead, appearing as a deity, can eat all foods offered by his devotees. So Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Patram Pushpam Phalam Toyam Yo Me Bhaktya Prayachati Tadaham Bhakti Upahritam Ashnami Prayatatmanaha. If one offers me with love and devotion a leaf, fruit, a flower, a leaf, flower, fruit, or water, I will accept it. The Lord is Purna. He is complete. It is not that he is lacking something. It is not that the Lord is hungry for your food. He is already Purnam. But what does he accept? He accepts our devotion. Bhakti Upahritam. That is what he is accepting. And then once he has accepted the food, what happens to the food? The food is the same as before, but actually the quality of the food has changed. What has mattered before now it acquires a transcendental quality, having been touched by the Lord. Now, after having taken that, even though the Lord has consumed, he remains the same. And when Lord gives something back, he remains the same. The food that is offered to Krishna is qualitatively as good as Krishna. Just as Krishna is avyaya, indestructible, the food eaten by Krishna, being identical to him, remains as before. It is indestructible. Now, not only this, but Krishna can eat food with any of his transcendental senses. he can eat just by seeing the food. Like for us, we have to take the food and eat the food, right? But for Krishna, it's not like that. He can just eat the food by seeing the food. Angani yasya sakalendriya vrittimanti pashyanti panti kalayanti chiram jaganti. So Angani yasya sakalendriya vrittimanti. From any of his transcendental limbs or senses, he can perform any function. So if we try to understand this with our blunt material senses, we cannot understand. Atah Sri Krishna Namadi na bhavet grahyam indriyaihi sevon mukhehi jihvado swayam eva spurati adaha. No one can understand Krishna by the blunt material senses, but he reveals himself to the devotees, being pleased with them for the transcendental loving service to him. So how Gopala ate everything while the food remained the same was transcendently perceived by Madhavendra Puri. He could see how Krishna has actually consumed this food. And seeing the influence of Madhavendra Puri, all the people gathered there were struck with wonder. They saw that the Annakuta ceremony, which had been performed long back, when Krishna had appeared, that was now again taking place. So soon there was one royal Kshatriya person who came. He was rich. He constructed a temple, a beautiful temple. And then there is elaborate description, Chaitanya Charitamrita, on how the deity worship was set up by Madhavendra Puri. And then there were some, how many priests are required. It is said that to do deity worship 6 times in a day, there are 5 or 6 priests that are required. And then soon there were some priests that arrived, additional priests that arrived. And once all of that was set up, all the arrangements were made. And as this was going on, one day, Madhavendra Puri had a dream, another dream. This is the second dream now. So first dream, already Gopala held his hand and took him to the bushes and got the deity discovered. Now second dream. So again Gopala comes in his dream and says, my dear Madhavendra Puri, my bodily temperature is still not decreased. Can you please bring some sandalwood from the Malaya province and smear the pulp over my body to cool me? Bring me the sandalwood pulp from Jagannath Puri. Please go there quickly. Don't waste any time. Immediately go. Other than you, nobody else can do it. Please go now. So then Madhavendra Puri wakes up. Says, one more instruction I got. And then he's very ecstatically, very happily, very eagerly, he proceeds to Jagannath Puri. And on the way to Jagannath Puri, he first arrives at the house of Advaita Acharya in Shantipur. So previously we saw how this whole story started with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu relating the story in Remuna, right? And previous to that, he had been to Advaita Acharya. Now Madhavendra Puri similarly goes to Shantipur, first goes to Advaita Acharya. He meets him there, and Advaita Acharya is very pleased to see the ecstatic love of Godhead manifest in Madhavendra Puri. And then Advaita Acharya begged to be initiated by Madhavendra Puri. So Advaita Acharya is also initiated by Madhavendra Puri. So after initiating him, Madhavendra Puri goes a little bit towards south. So as you saw in the map, Shantipur is on the north. When you come down, Remuna is Jagannath Puri is on the south. And so on the way to Jagannath Puri, he stops in Remuna, where Gopinatha is situated. Upon seeing the beauty of the deity, Madhavendra Puri was overwhelmed. And there was a hall, and there he was chanting and dancing. And the priests were also thrilled to see him. So they were so astonished to see such a devotee. And then after some time, there was a arati was performed. And then there was a bhoga which was offered. And Madhavendra Puri, he was thinking, let me see what kind of bhoga is offered in this temple. And then he was thinking that if he understands what kind of bhoga is offered, then he can do similar arrangements in near Govardhan also, where the deity was newly installed, Gopala deity was installed. So with that intention, he is asking, and the priest is carrying the offerings. So at that time, the priest describes all the different kinds of offerings that are done. And then he says that the most special offering done here is actually the sweet rice. And then as he says that, he's taking the sweet rice towards the Lord. And then Madhavendra Puri is thinking, oh, if without me, because he does not ask anybody for prasadam or food or anything, right? Madhavendra Puri is fully renounced. So he starts thinking that if on its own, this prasadam somehow comes to me, I will taste this little bit of this prasadam and I will make exactly like this for Gopala in Govardhan. He's thinking like this. But at this point, that sweet rice has actually not been offered yet. As soon as this thought comes to him, immediately he begins to lament. Oh, what have I done? What have I done? I have I have had a desire to have this prasadam, sweet rice, before the Lord has tasted it. So he becomes very, very regretful. Immediately he leaves from that place and he goes outside the temple, and he does not discuss with anyone. He's very, very sorrowful at the time. And later, the temple programs are over and the priest cleans up everything and then goes home and retires and goes to sleep. Now, in the dream of the priest, there is a dream. And the Gopinath deity comes in the dream of this priest, and then he says, look, behind the curtain in the main temple, in the altar, there is one sweet rice that has been kept. You please take that and give it to one monk by the name Madhavendra Puri. You did not see this earlier because I have tricked you. See, the priest actually has cleared up the whole altar, right? He knows every day he's making the offering. So after the offering is over, he'll clear out all the pots and pans and everything. But in the dream, the deity says that actually you could not see this. Why? Because I hid it from you. I kept it behind the curtain so you would not see it. Now you please take it and go. And immediately he awoke from his dream, and the priest, what did he do? Did he run into the temple? No. What did he do? He took bath first. So he was going to go into the temple. It's very important. Look at the regulative principles. He first took a bath and then he entered the temple hall. And then he went into the deity's room, and sure enough, there was a pot of sweet rice kept there. And then he took that and then started calling out for, where is Madhavendra Puri? Madhavendra Puri, please come here. Who's Madhavendra Puri? Look, the Lord has stolen this pot of sweet rice just for you. Please come and collect what is yours. You're so fortunate. And then, having heard this invitation, Madhavendra Puri comes forward and identifies himself. And then the priest delivers the pot and completely falls flat like a rod before him. And then gives him the pot of sweet rice. At this point, there is one thing to be noted here. The Lord appears in the dream of the priest. The Lord appears in the dream of Madhavendra Puri also. The Lord has appeared in both people's dream. So it is possible that the priest may think that the Lord has appeared in my dream. So I am superior. I'll go there and give the pot. After all, I'm the priest of this temple. I'll give him the pot and bless him with it. He could have thought like that. He did not think like that. He considered Madhavendra Puri to be superior and offered obeisances to him. So what is the principle here? He did not know whether he's a Brahmana or what his status is. He had no idea. And this is a Brahmana priest. And remember, this is 500 years back. We've already heard previously how the rigid system was. But this priest knew the principle. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has, this principle had been mostly lost. But there were some pure souls who knew this principle. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has explained this as follows. Kiba Vipra, Kiba Nyasi, Shudra Kene Naya, Ye Krishna Tattva Veta, She Guru Haya. So whether a person is a Vipra, Brahmana, or a Sannyasi, or a Shudra, it doesn't matter who he is. The one who knows Krishna Tattva, the science of Krishna, he is a Guru. So recognizing that the Lord has stolen the sweet rice for somebody means that person should be an exalted devotee of Krishna. He understands Krishna. Krishna understands him. So thinking like this, the priest offered full obeisances to Madhavendra Puri. So Lord Chaitanya Madhavendra Puri, after taking this the sweet rice, actually after finishing the sweet rice, he kept the pot with him. As he realized that the Lord had touched the pot, he ground that pot and kept it with him. And every day he will take a little bit and eat the pot also, because the pot itself is the prasadam touched by Krishna. So if somebody gives you a prasadam in a plastic cup, will you be able to eat the plastic cup also? Not our position, but see the exalted position of the devotee of the Lord. Now, after that, he traveled further to Jagannath Puri, and then he collected the sandalwood pulp from Jagannath Puri, And in Jagannath Puri, when they heard this, the pastimes of Gopala, by the time they all knew about Madhavendra Puri, how the Lord has stolen the sweet rice for him. So they were eagerly awaiting his arrival. When they saw him, they were very much astonished that such a great exalted devotee has come here. So when he explained the mission of Gopal, instructions of Gopala, they very gladly gave him the necessary sandalwood and camphor that was to be mixed and converted into a pulp. So as he came back to Remuna, again he took darshan, and again he stayed one night there. So this time the priest directly gave him the sweet rice. No need to make the Lord steal for him. So directly he gave him that, please take it, and he was forced him to eat also. Otherwise Madhavendra Puri was reluctant, but he gave him that. So that night, once again the Lord appears in the dream of Madhavendra Puri. He says, please don't bring the sandalwood pulp all the way to Vrindavan. Myself and the Gopinath, they are non-different. So if you, whatever sandalwood pulp you have got, you please grind that and you offer that to the Gopinath deity only. Every day, little bit you keep doing until the entire quantity is finished. And I will consider that same sandalwood pulp that you're applying to Gopinatha, it will come for me also. So like this, he gives instructions, and Madhavendra Puri stays there until that stock was finished. So Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu thus personally, he related these pastimes and praised the nectarian characteristics of Madhavendra Puri. And while he related all this to the devotees, he personally relished it. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu placed the standard of Madhavendra Puri's intense love before Nityananda Prabhu for judgment. Is it possible to find anybody else, Nityananda? Is it possible to find anybody better than this? Like this, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was glorifying Madhavendra Puri. All his loving activities are uncommon. Indeed, one is struck with wonder to hear of his activities. And Sri Madhavendra Puri used to remain alone. He was completely renounced and always very silent. This is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is describing the glories of Madhavendra Puri. He was uninterested in everything material. And for the fear of talking about mundane things, he always lived without a companion. After receiving the transcendental orders of Gopala, this great personality traveled thousands of miles just to collect sandalwood by begging. Without considering any personal comforts, Madhavendra Puri carried about one mound. Mound is about 82 pounds. So he is not having proper food. He does not go beg for alms. He is very thin, and there is not proper food, right? He's fasting all the time. If somebody comes and gives, he takes. In that condition, he has carried 82 pounds of sandalwood and 20 tolas, about 8 ounces of camphor, to smear on the body of Gopala. Now, we all had some experience in carrying some luggage, especially if you're going for international trips. You always put the suitcase and you lift it and see. And up to 50 pounds it is allowed. So you can see what is the limit of 50 pounds. Usually 50 pounds is a limit where typically once you lift, it's difficult to lift. Without even a weighing machine, I can tell, because I've traveled so many times. Once it is difficult to lift, it means 50 pounds is crossed. So I cannot even imagine how a person who's been fasting like that, 82 pounds is carrying without any worry about his comfort. And Madhavendra Puri, he was not at all anxious that during this long journey to Vrindavan, that is taking the sandalwood and coming back to Vrindavan, that there are many Muslim kingdoms on the way, right? But Muslim kings are there. And every place there's a toll. If you're thinking that today only in highways there are toll, that is not the case. Tolls have always existed for hundreds of years. Even at the time of Muslim kings, there were tolls. And if you are carrying any merchandise, any valuable merchandise, you have to pay toll at every toll naka. This was the system even then. So Madhavendra Puri is sannyasi. He does not have anything. He has no money to give. And he is carrying sandalwood. Even in those days, sandalwood was very valuable. So if somebody is carrying 82 pounds of sandalwood, that would definitely attract toll. And those the toll people, especially in Muslim kingdom, would have given him trouble. But he didn't worry about any of that. He just took it. We have heard about the story of how Vasudeva, when ordered by Krishna to take him on a basket to across the river in Yamuna, he did not worry about whether the gates of the prison will open or how will they open, what will the guards do. He did not worry about any of that. He just took the Lord and started walking, automatically the gates of the jail, they opened. Automatically the soldiers who were guarding, they all fell asleep. And when he went to Yamuna, the Yamuna was in a spate, right? It was raining heavily, and he could have drowned very easily, because when Yamuna is a very forceful river, it is not just ordinary, you can easily be carried away. He didn't worry about that. He just started walking, and in fact the spate increased, and he kept on walking and walking, and once the Yamuna Devi touched the feet of Krishna, immediately the spate subsided and he was able to cross. So Madhavendra Puri, similarly, he did not worry about any of that. He just went about following the instruction of the Lord. This is the glory of Madhavendra Puri, recited personally by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Prabhupada says, don't be too eager to see God. Rather, do something so that God becomes eager to see you. So here we can see that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu personally is glorifying Madhavendra Puri, because the deity of Gopinath personally chose to steal some sweet rice for Madhavendra Puri. And prior to that, the Lord Gopala, he had personally come and given him a pot of sweet rice. At this point, I would like you to repeat after me the second verse of Paramakaruna, the song which we had sung earlier. Bhajo bhajo bhai Chaitanya Nitai Sudhrida Vishwasa Kori. Chaitanya Nitai Sudhrida Vishwasa Kori. Vishaya Chadiya Sera se Majia Mukhe Chadiya Sera se Majia Mukhe bolo Hari Hari. Mukhe bolo Hari Hari. My dear brother, I request that you just worship Lord Chaitanya and Nityananda with firm conviction and faith. If one wants to be Krishna conscious by this process, one has to give up his engagement in sense gratification. One simply has to chant Hare Krishna, Hari Hari without any motive. So we see that the pastime of Madhavendra Puri exemplifies the second verse of the song. So starting from, if you see Madhvacharya, we have heard about the 4 Vaishnava Sampradayas, and in the Madhva Sampradaya, beginning from Madhvacharya down to up to Madhavendra Puri, in fact, the spiritual, up to the spiritual master of Madhavendra Puri. Spiritual master of Madhavendra Puri was a great saint by the name Lakshmipati. Lakshmipati. So up to the point of Lakshmipati, there was no realization of the devotional service in conjugal love. So the rendering devotional service in conjugal love was not there. That was not manifest in those the pastimes of those acharyas. So Sri Madhavendra Puri was the first acharya in the Madhvacharya Sampradaya to introduce this conception of conjugal love for the first time. And this conclusion of Madhvacharya Sampradaya was revealed by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu when he toured South India and met the Tattvavadis. So when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went after this Jagannath pastime, Jagannath Puri, staying in Jagannath Puri and coming down to that Jagannath Puri and liberating Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. After that, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu travels South India, and after visiting several places, he comes to the Udupi, where he meets the so-called followers of Madhvacharya, and they were known as Tattvavadis, and they were very proud. They thought that they were very philosophical and they were highest Vaishnavas, like that they used to think. Whereas Sri Vaishnavas were very humble. In Rangakshetra, he met Sri Vaishnavas also. They were all very humble and pure devotees. But as he went up to the Udupi there, Madhvacharya's disciples by the time had become a little bit puffed up and a little bit deviated. So there he explained this concept of how Madhavendra Puri has re-established, or has introduced rather, the conception of conjugal love. So when Sri Krishna left Vrindavan and accepted the kingdom of Mathura, Srimati Radharani out of ecstatic feelings of separation, had expressed how Krishna can be loved in separation. And thus, the devotional service in separation is central. And the worship in separation is considered by the Gaudiya Madhva Sampradaya to be the topmost level of devotional service. According to this conception, the devotee thinks of himself as very poor and neglected by the Lord. There is this wonderful verse that was manifest in the heart of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and I think I have that. It's not here. A minute. Yes, the verse is Ai Deena Dayardra Natha He Mathura Natha Kadavalokyase Hridayam Tvad Alok Kataram Daita Brahmyati Kim Karomyaham. O my Lord, O most merciful Master, O Master of Mathura, when shall I see you again? Because of me not seeing you, my agitated heart has become unsteady. O most beloved one, what shall I do now? So this mood of separation of the gopis of Srimati Radharani, this mood was present in Madhvacharya, in Madhavendra Puri. So the glories of Madhavendra Puri are unlimited, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu personally related these pastimes to his devotees. And every time he would, when he was present in Remuna, he was so ecstatic in the mood and remembrance of Madhavendra Puri, and this particular prayer that Madhavendra Puri had manifested. Actually, it was stated in Chaitanya Charitamrita that this prayer was manifested by Srimati Radharani in his heart, in the heart of Madhavendra Puri. This prayer was so ecstatic for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that he could not even chant the prayer fully. He would just say one word, two words, and immediately he'll become unconscious. He'll roll on the ground. It was so much of influence on Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says that one who hears this narration with faith and devotion attains the treasure of love of Godhead at the lotus feet of Sri Krishna. So I'm hoping that all of us who are participating in this program and hearing this pastime would similarly find Krishna Prema. Then Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went towards, can you please give me the charger which is kept in my bag there? Chaitanya Mahaprabhu reaches Jagannath Puri, and as soon as he reaches Jagannath Puri, he runs to embrace Lord Jagannath, but he is so ecstatic that on the way he falls unconscious. So there is one personality in the temple. He was the head priest of Jagannath Puri temple. He's a person by the name Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was a learned scholar and the head of the Mayavadi sect, impersonalist sect in that area, and very well renowned impersonalist in all of the region. So Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was very surprised to see the personal beauty of this young sannyasi who has come to this temple. And when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu falls unconscious, he is truly astonished, because this kind of a so first Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya wants to ascertain what has happened here. And while some of the guards, because sometimes people used to tend to be having ecstatic symptoms, and they would do all kinds of drama in the temple. And the guards and the watchmen there were very well aware of it. So as soon as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu fainted, the first instinct from the guard was actually to take a stick and beat this person who has come, thinking that he's a pretender. But immediately Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya stops. He knows this is not ordinary person. He prevents that from happening. And once all the arati and everything, the morning, those programs are finished, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, with the help of some of the other disciples of followers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, followers of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, they carry him there. So actually carry him to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya's residence. At this time, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had traveled, was alone. His associates were a little bit behind. There is another pastime for that, which we don't have time to narrate today. But one way or the other, Nityananda Prabhu, Mukunda Dasa, and others were all behind. They did not catch up to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has come alone to Jagannath temple. He has fallen unconscious. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya carries him into his own residence. And then he's observing Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, absolutely motionless. Abdomen is not moving. So he is very concerned. He takes a little bit of cotton and keeps it near the nostrils of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And there is a very small, faint movement of cotton. So when he sees that there is a very faint movement of cotton, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya becomes a little bit hopeful. Okay, I think this person is fine. He will be revived at some point. And but he's sitting next to him and he's wondering, what a wonderful ecstatic emotion or transcendental quality has been displayed by this person. This can only happen by love of Krishna. Like this he was thinking. And in the temple, there is Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya has a brother-in-law. The brother-in-law's name is Gopinath Acharya. Gopinath Acharya is originally from Nadia district. Nadia district is the district where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was born. So Gopinath Acharya is the brother-in-law of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. And he has not seen Chaitanya Mahaprabhu come. He was somewhere else. So later, when he comes to the temple, at the same time, the other associates of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also come to the temple. And they meet there. And then Mukunda Dasa knows Gopinath Acharya. So they meet and greet and they discuss. And then somebody in the temple tells him that this kind of thing has happened. There was a sannyasi who came some time back and he fell unconscious. Now he has been taken to the house, to the residence of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. So they all learnt about all this. So when they heard all of this, naturally, the people who have come from Nadia, the associates of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they do not know where Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya's house is, right? But Gopinath Acharya knows, he's living there. So he takes all of them to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya's residence. And as they're entering, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya allows them to come inside. Now, this should not be taken ordinarily. If somebody knocks and we bring them inside, we think, what's the big deal? But this is not ordinary person. These are people, strangers are coming. And Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya is a head priest of Jagannath Puri temple. So not everybody can simply enter into his residence. But he sees who they are and he allows them to come inside. And then he receives them very well. And at this point, there is Gopinath Acharya, there is Mukunda Dasa, and there is Nityananda Prabhu. Nityananda Prabhu has also come there. So as soon as Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya sees Nityananda Prabhu, immediately falls down and offers obeisances. And then he receives them all, and then all of the devotees are pleased to see that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is well, although he is a little fainted. And then they all start chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra, and then he's revived. As soon as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, whenever he hears, so this would happen a lot. Even previous to this, many times Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would faint. The only way he can be revived is by somebody chanting loudly Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, in the ears of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So as they start loudly chanting, he would immediately become revived. So this secret is of course not known to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. But as soon as Nityananda Prabhu and everybody else comes, they all know this and they start chanting, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu regains consciousness. So as soon as he wakes up, then everybody gets a garland prasadam of Jagannath, and then they're all given a nice sumptuous prasadam. Of course, initially Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, no, I don't want so much, just give me a little bit of boiled rice. He's a little bit older, so he strictly says, today all of you please take whatever Jagannath has eaten, that's what he should eat. And he forces them to eat all nice sumptuous chapan bhog prasadam they all get. So then after that, once Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is given some separate quarters, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya gives him a separate quarters for him. And then later on, he is talking to Gopinath Acharya, a little bit in privacy. So he says he wants to inquire about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Who is this person? I would like to know about his Purvashram, about his prior to sannyasa, where did he come from? So then Gopinath Acharya describes that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is actually the son of Jagannath Mishra, and his former name is Vishwambhara Mishra, and he also happens to be the grandson of Nilambar Chakravarti. So he's the grandson of Nilambar Chakravarti. And immediately Bhattacharya says, oh, Nilambar Chakravarti. Oh, Nilambar Chakravarti and my father were classmates. And my father used to respect Nilambar Chakravarti a lot. And in fact, not only Nilambar Chakravarti, but his son Jagannath Mishra also was very much respected by my father. And therefore, I have a great deal of respect for both Jagannath Mishra and Nilambar Chakravarti. And he had a sense of paternal love, affection towards Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the young boy who has come from a respectable family, and he is now seeing him as a sannyasi. So hearing all this, he turns to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and Chaitanya, and he says that, look, you're a sannyasi, and plus you come from such a respectable background. Now I want to become your personal servant. He says like this. Now this is a way in which this is the etiquette of how a transcendentalist greets another transcendentalist. At this point, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya is an impersonalist. He is learned Vedantist, and he's seeing a sannyasi of respectable lineage, and he's taking a humble position. This is how they are greeting. And as soon as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu heard this, immediately he remembers Lord Vishnu and began to speak humbly to him as follows. Because you are a teacher of Vedanta philosophy, you are the master of all the people in the world, Jagat Guru. He addresses him as Jagat Guru. And you are a well-wisher as well. I am just a young sannyasi. Actually, I have no knowledge of what is good and what is bad. Therefore, I am taking shelter of you and accepting you as my spiritual master. I have only come here to associate with you, and now I'm taking shelter of you. Can you please maintain me in all respects? You see the etiquette, how a transcendentalist is approaching another transcendentalist in a humble way. Not that now Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is a Lord, he's a supreme personality of Godhead, but see how he's approaching another person, even though he knows very well that he is Mayavadi, he's impersonalist, and he does not accept various conclusions, Vaishnava conclusions, but still this is how he's approaching. So next day morning, after the morning Aarti was over, Gopinath Acharya takes Mukunda Datta with him and goes to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya's house. And so at that point, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is not there. He's still somewhere else in the temple only, but not there. So Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya addresses Mukunda Datta, and he says, the sannyasi who has come is very meek and humble by nature. His person is very beautiful to see. Consequently, my affection for him is increasing. From which sampradaya has he accepted sannyasa order? What is his name? It's like this, he's putting questions. Gopinath Acharya says, his name is Sri Krishna Chaitanya, and his sannyasa preceptor is a greatly fortunate Keshava Bharati. So immediately Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya says, oh, Sri Krishna is nice, but this Chaitanya, but he belongs to a Bharati community. So he's a second-class sannyasi, like that he says. So immediately Gopinath Acharya is a little bit offended. He says, no. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu does not rely on these external formalities. There is no need for him to accept sannyasa order at all from any superior sampradaya. So like this, there is a little bit of exchange that happens where Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya feels that the sannyasi is there. He's a little bit, he's such a nice sannyasi, young boy. Maybe how can I help him? He wants to bring him up to a higher level of sannyasa ashrama. In the Sankara Sampradaya, there are various categories of sannyasa. It is described in Chaitanya Charitamrita that there are 10 categories of sannyasis. And this Bharati is somewhere in the middle. It is not the highest. Saraswati is considered to be one of the highest. So Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was from the Saraswati sannyasi category, and he was willing to reinitiate him in that category. So Gopinath Acharya, he was from Nadia. He knew Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's glories. So he was a little offended by this, and he tried to correct Bhattacharya. My dear Bhattacharya, you do not know the greatness of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. All the symptoms of Supreme Personality of Godhead are found in him to the highest degree. See, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is Shad Aishwarya Purna. What are the Shad Aishwaryas of Supreme Personality of Godhead? Aishwaryasya Samagrasya Viryasya Yashasha Sriyaha Jnana Vairagya Yaschaiva Shannama Bhaga Iti Gana. So these Shad Aishwaryas, Gopinath Acharya is explaining that they are present in full in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is celebrated as a Supreme Personality of Godhead. Those who are ignorant of this connection find the conclusion of knowledgeable men very difficult to understand. But then immediately there are disciples of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya are there. They are asking, okay, by what evidence do you conclude that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Supreme Lord? Like this they're asking. And then Gopinath Acharya says that the statements of authorized acharyas who understand the supreme absolute truth are the proof. Then the disciples of Bhattacharya say, look, we derive the knowledge by logical hypothesis. We don't accept simply the assertions of acharyas. We use logical hypothesis. To that, Gopinath Acharya says, one cannot attain real knowledge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead by such logical hypothesis and argument. Actually, the impersonalist school of philosophy is trying to understand the supreme absolute truth in the impersonal form, which they refer to as Brahman. But then we know that Brahman is nothing but effulgence of the Lord. It's the effulgence of the Lord. Where is that mentioned? It is mentioned that Yasya Prabha Prabhavato Jagadanda Koti. Yasya Prabha Prabhavato Jagadanda Koti. So this Prabha, or the effulgence of the Lord, is pervading Jagadanda Koti, millions of universes. And of course, the Lord Krishna also says in Bhagavad Gita, Brahmano hi pratishtaham. Brahman is situated in me. And so therefore we know that Brahman is the effulgence of the Lord, but the impersonalists do not have access to this knowledge. So the disciples of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya were very polite. They were not emotional, they were not fanatical. They were trying to understand on the basis of scriptures, Shastra. So they were asking further, please show me evidence that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was actually the creator of the cosmic manifestation. Where is the proof? Show me some Shastric evidence. Only if you show me Shastric evidence, some real evidence, then only I will accept. This is what they were saying. So Gopinath Acharya says further that actually one cannot understand Supreme Personality of Godhead by simply logical explanations like that. And Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Naham Prakasha Sarvasya Yoga Maya Samavritaha Mudhoyam Nabhijanati Loko Mam Ajam Avyayam. I am never manifest to the foolish and unintelligent. For them, I am covered by my eternal creative potency, Yoga Maya. So the deluded world knows me not, who am unborn and infallible. So Supreme Lord, it is not that we demand that, oh, prove that you are Krishna, and he's immediately going to prove. He has no need to prove. If anybody is approaching in a challenging mood, anybody wants to compete with Krishna and wants to think that Krishna does not have form, Krishna does not have fame, qualities, he has nothing, it is just impersonal, then why would Krishna bother to reveal himself? Krishna reserves the right to reveal himself only to bona fide devotees. That's his right. And Krishna says, Bhaktya mam abhijanati. One can only understand me by devotional process. So one can only understand Krishna by his mercy. This is what Gopinath Acharya says. He's trying to counter them. You cannot simply demand logic like this. Unless Krishna's mercy is available, you cannot perceive Krishna. And then Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya is asking, okay, then if you are saying that this is the case, then what is the proof that you have received this mercy? You are telling that this is the Mahaprabhu of God, right? You are saying that only devotees can have access to this mercy. What is the proof that you have received this mercy? So Gopinath Acharya says, the knowledge of Sammam Bonam, the absolute truth, is the evidence of the mercy of the Supreme Lord. I'll just repeat the statement again. The knowledge of Sammam Bonam, or absolute truth, is the evidence of mercy of Supreme Lord. In other words, one cannot understand the absolute truth without the mercy of Supreme Lord. Vadanti tat tattva vidas tattvam yat jnanam advayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavaniti shabdhyate. One cannot understand the absolute truth in full until one has the mercy of the Lord. So he says that, look, when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was in front of you, unconscious, you saw his bodily symptoms. You could see that this kind of ecstatic love is not possible in an ordinary human being. You could see that this must be the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and yet you're not accepting. This is called illusion. A person influenced by illusion, by external energy, is called Bahirmukha Jana, a mundane person. And like this, he becomes a little bit, you can say, offensive. So actually, Gopinath Acharya was his brother-in-law. Between brother-in-law, this kind of things happen. Sometimes Gopinath Acharya used to preach to him by chastising him. Sometimes he used to praise him. Sometimes he used to glorify him. Sometimes he used to do all these things. So these kind of joking things used to happen. So Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was all right. Immediately he smiles a little bit. Please don't get offensive. Look, I'm just asking you. You got to have some proof. Some proof you need to show me. In Shastras, there's no mention of any incarnation of the Lord in the age of Kali. Like this Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya says. So immediately Gopinath Acharya says, huh? How can you say that? Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya says that the Lord is referred to as Tri Yuga. In Bhagavatam, there is a reference to the Lord as Tri Yuga. And Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya says, what does it mean? It means that the Lord is appearing in 3 yugas. It does not appear in Kali Yuga. So Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya says that, look, yes, he is known as Tri Yuga. But that is because he is having his Leela avatar in the other 3 yugas. In the Kali Yuga, he does not have Leela avatar. He has Yuga avatar. Does not have Leela avatar. But you are not seeing the Yuga avatar. You are not reading those scriptures. Bhagavatam and Mahabharata are also very important scriptures. But you are not considering giving importance to that. And then he quotes 2 verses from to support his Shastrik Pramana. The first one is this verse from Bhagavatam. Krishna Varnam Tusha Krishnam Shangopangastra Parshadam Yagyay Sankirtane Prayar Yajantihi Sumedhasaha. In this age of Kali, those who are intelligent perform the congregational chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead who appears in this age, always describing the glories of Krishna. That incarnation is yellowish in hue and is always associated with his plenary expansion such as Sri Nityananda Prabhu and personal expansion such as Gadadhara, as well as his devotees and associates such as Swarupa Damodara. So this is one verse he quotes. And then the second verse he quotes is from Vishnu Sahasranama in Mahabharata. So this verse in Vishnu Sahasranama says, Suvarnavarno hemango varangas chandanangadi sanyasakrit shanto nishtha shanti parayana. The Lord in the incarnation of Gaurasundara has a golden complexion. Indeed, his entire body, which is very nicely constituted, is like a molten gold. Sandalwood pulp is smeared all over his body. He will take the 4th order of spiritual life, sannyasa, and will be very much self-controlled. He will be distinguished from Mayavadi sannyasis in that he will be fixed in devotional service and will spread the Sankirtana movement. So actually, I have learned Vishnu Sahasranama in my childhood, like all other Mayavadis, and also have seen the translations. I had never seen this understanding of this wonderful explanation of this particular verse of Vishnu Sahasranama. Suvarna Varno Hemango Varangas Chandanangadi. So here, Suvarna Varna, golden complexion. Hemango, molten gold. Hema is gold. Hemango is molten gold. So this Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's appearance as a Supreme Lord has been foretold in Bhagavatam as well as in Vishnu Sahasranama. So he quotes these verses, and then after that they break for the day. And Bhattacharya has already offered to speak on the Vedanta to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu because he's very much worried that a young sannyasi will get deviated from the path of sannyas. So according to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, studying Vedanta is the best way to stay on the path of sannyas, to not get the senses go astray because he's so young and senses are very, very strong at that age. So they come together, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, next day morning, he calls Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to the temple along with his other associates, and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya goes along with his disciples, and then he starts speaking on Vedanta. And he continues to speak on Vedanta for 7 days. For 7 days, the Lord hears from Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya patiently, but he does not interrupt, he does not reply, nor does he ask any questions. He simply sat there and listened to Bhattacharya. On the 8th day, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya says to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, you have been listening to Vedanta philosophy for me continuously for 7 days. You've just been listening. And I don't know whether you have understood, you have not understood, whether you have some difference or you have any questions. When I read this, I'm sometimes reminded of Prabhu when he takes class. Everybody is on, no video is not on. There are no questions, and everyone is silent. And Prabhu is wondering if anyone understood or not. He often asks. So similarly, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is silent. He's not asking any questions, and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya is having it out. But he waits for 7 days. Full day he's speaking, not 1 hour class. After 7 days, he asked on the 8th day, have you understood anything or not? So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, look, I understand Vedanta, but the way that you are explaining, I'm not able to understand, because Vedanta has direct meaning, but those direct meanings you are misinterpreting, you are covering them and giving an indirect meaning. Wherever direct meaning is evident, you should focus on the direct meaning. If direct meaning is not there, you can look at indirect. But when direct meaning is so obvious, why are you looking at indirect meaning? And then he gives some explanations and examples from various scriptures to show what is the direct meaning, establishing the supreme personality of Godhead, the Bhagavan feature as a supreme. This is what is there in all the literature, and yet the explanation given by Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, the impersonalist explanation, it is covering that. So like this, they have some conversation, and then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says that actually this he asks like pointed, hard-hitting questions. Till now he was humble, right? He asks some hard-hitting question. He says, are you saying that the Supreme Lord, who is full of 6 opulences, which you just saw, Shat Aishwaryas, that he has got no qualities? He has got 6 opulences. They are nothing for you? Like that he asks. And then he says, the Lord is Satchidananda Vigraha. He is full of these transcendental qualities of Sat, Chit and Ananda. Are you saying that this means nothing? Because according to the impersonalist, it is called Nirguna. The Brahman is called Nirguna, has no qualities. This is how it is explained. So the Upanishads and the Vedanta, the way the impersonalist philosophy explains it, the qualities of the Lord are considered to be non-existent. It is considered that the qualities of the Lord don't exist. There is no qualities. He has got no form, no qualities. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is asking these hard-hitting questions. How can you say this? And after that, he says, actually, this is not your fault. You're saying this because this is the teaching of Shankaracharya. And Shankaracharya himself is not at fault. He's simply executing the order of Supreme Lord. Once, and then he quotes 2 verses where Lord Shiva is ordered by the Supreme Lord to delude the atheistic people, so that the atheistic people do not come to know about the personal form of the Lord. Because once who know, Janma Karma Chame Divyam Evam Yo Veti Tatvatha Tyaktva Jevam Punarjanmaneti. So this liberation, awarding of liberation, the Supreme Lord wanted to keep it reserved for the devotees. So he gave instruction to Lord Shiva that please keep this information about me, this confidential information about me, about my transcendental quality, keep it away, hidden from the atheistic people. And then there's another verse where Lord Shiva is telling Parvati that I shall incarnate in the age of Kali as a sannyasi, as a brahmana, and delude the people. I shall take the form of a brahmana and explain the Vedas through false scriptures in an atheistic way, similar to Buddhist philosophy. So this is Lord Shiva saying to Durga. So as soon as Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya hears this, he becomes stunned. He becomes astonished. And then the Lord gives the final punch by quoting the famous Atmarama verse. The verse goes, Atmaramascha munayo nirgrantha api urukrame kurvantya tukim bhaktim ittam bhuta guno harihi. Those who are self-satisfied and unattracted by external material desires are also attracted to the loving service of Sri Krishna, whose qualities are transcendental and whose activities are wonderful. Hari, the personality of Godhead, is called Krishna because he has such transcendentally attractive features. And when he quotes this verse, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya becomes very, very eager to hear the meanings of this, explanations to this verse. Why are you quoting this? What does it mean? And then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, all right, I'll tell you, but first, why don't you tell what is your understanding? And then Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya gives 9 very scholarly explanations to this verse by taking each word and taking the Sanskrit meaning and grammar. And he gives very beautiful explanations. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu praises those explanations that you're speaking like Brahaspati, Sakshat Brahaspati, who's the preceptor of the Devatas. And such a wonderful way you have composed this. But besides the 9 scholarly ways in which you have explained, there is actually a different set of way to understand, to see this verse in terms of devotional service. And then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, without touching upon the 9 meanings given by Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, explains the Atmarama verse with 18 different meanings. And taking each of these words and giving different devotional understanding of this, he gives 18 different meanings. And this is a subject by itself. It's another 1 hour of conversation, not only this conversation with Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, but subsequent conversation with Sanatana Goswami also, where he gives 61 different meanings to this. But at this point, hearing these 18 different meanings, without even touching the 9 meanings that Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya has given, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya is completely stunned. He realizes that this is actually the person standing before him, is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he falls at his feet and very much begins to lament, oh, how I have offended without knowing your position, and surrenders himself to the lotus feet of the Lord. Then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu takes mercy upon him and shows him his 4-handed Vishnu form, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. And after showing his 4-handed Vishnu form, he also shows his 2-handed Shyamasundara form. And at the end of this, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya has completely filled with ecstasy and offers repeated obeisances and becomes one of his most confidential servants of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu after this. So, in today's pastime, we saw how going beyond his manifestation of his pastimes as a devotee, the Supreme Lord has melted a stone-like heart of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya and bestowed him the highest mercy of Krishna Prema. Now I would like you to join me in chanting the 3rd verse of Parama Karuna. Dekho re bhai Tribhuvane na yamuna dayal data.
Dekho re bhai Tribhuvane yamuna dayal data.
Pashupaki jhure pashana vidare.
Pashupaki jhure pashana vidare.
Shuni jara guna gatha.
Suni jara guna gatha.
My dear brother, just try to examine this. Within the 3 worlds, there is no one like Lord Chaitanya or Lord Nityananda. Their merciful qualities are so great that upon hearing them, even birds and beasts cry and stones melt. We just saw how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu melted the stone-like hard heart of the impersonalist Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. And then I would like to finish today's session with this last verse of Parama Karuna song. Samsare majhiya grohili poriya sepade no hilo asha.
Samsare madhiya rohili poriya sepade nahi loasha.
Apana karama bhunjaye samana. Kaho ye lochana dasa. But Lochana Das regrets that I am entrapped by sense gratification. Since I have no attraction for the lotus feet of Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, then Yamaraja, the superintendent of death, is punishing me by not allowing me to be attracted by this moment. So this is our position. Lochana Dasa, of course, is a pure devotee. Our position is that despite knowing Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as Supreme Personality of Godhead, as the most munificent incarnation, we are so entrapped in sense gratification that we have no attraction for the lotus feet of Nitai Gauranga. But I hope that through these series of classes, sessions on the glories of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Chaitanya Charitamrita, the love towards Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and respect for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, faith in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu will grow in our hearts. And on the day of Gaura Purnima, that we would take a step away from sense gratification and a step towards developing love and devotion towards the Lord. With this, I'll stop here and pause for any questions, comments. If there are no questions, please come on the camera.
Stop the screen.
And raise your hands and chant after me. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare,
Krishna Krishna Hare Hare
Hare Rama, Hare Rama,
Hare Rama, Hare Rama,
Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Rama Rama.
Hare Hare
Chaitanya Charitamrita ki,
Jai,
Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki,
Jai.
Nitai Gaur Premanande. You're dancing in ecstasy like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
Yes, Prabhu, she is.